Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Coffee Talk with Encore. Well, with the summer picnic season upon us, we thought it would be the perfect time to discuss how picnic celebrations and gatherings can be fun events, but could also be difficult for those with dysphagia. Since those with dysphagia cannot freely consume typical food items found at picnic gatherings, picnics could really pose to be a challenge for those in need of specific food textures and liquid consistencies. Well, we have some great ideas and approaches that we'd like to share today that can be used in making picnic celebrations enjoyable and fun for everyone.
When I think of people with dysphagia, to me, I kind of categorize them in my head as similar to people with food allergies, right? There are things that are safe to eat, and there are things that are not safe to eat. And we want to make sure that when we're in a setting where it's social and we're eating, so whether it be a picnic or a family get together or going out to dinner, that we make sure that that person has something that is safe for them to eat. The last thing that we want is for our patients or our loved ones, our family members, whoever it may be, to be sitting around in this social setting, unable to eat while everyone else around them is enjoying food. And actually, potentially a worse outcome than that is them trying to eat something at the picnic, thinking that it might be okay, in order to kind of fit into that social eating mode, when it's really not safe for them to do and it could cause them a lot of harm. From my OT perspective, I have to throw this out there too. There are also patients and loved ones who struggle with self-feeding. So maybe they struggle with using utensils without spilling off of the fork. Maybe they struggle with really gathering that food on their plate. And so they're kind of dumping it on the table as they're trying to gather that. And so by strategically having certain foods available, we can avoid that feeling of embarrassment of them, getting food on their shirt, getting food on their table, being unable to eat with the rest of the group. So there are some easy ways that we can make it more inclusive so that we can avoid that uncomfortable and that potentially embarrassing feeling for our loved ones and patients.
Definitely. So I think it's really important that we just plan ahead. So even if we're clinicians working in a building, we can help our kitchens and our activity departments plan ahead for activities, considering all of the patient's needs in the facility. So talking to the dietitian, the kitchen, the activities department about offering different options for people who are on modified diets or like pureed or minced and moist. So instead of like those crunchy cookies or those hard pie crusts that we tend to find at picnics and those social gatherings, maybe we can think about softer cookies, think sherbet, things like that, still get the fruity and the sweet. Even those savory choices for patients who are on modified diets. I don't know how many picnics and activities I've gone to when I walk in and everybody's eating hot dogs. And as a speech therapist, I'm like, oh. So if I'm planning a meal for people with potential dysphagia, I'm thinking instead of hot dogs, maybe like a soft pulled pork. And then even if they don't have the ability to consume the bread item, like for a sandwich, we can still put a helping of, pulled pork or, kind of finely mince it to meet that mince and moist requirement, but just offering a multiple choice items and not just kind of sticking with hot dogs and hamburgers. So even fruits, I think of, when I walk into a dining room in the summer or a picnic event, and I see sliced cantaloupe and grapes and things that are really just difficult, not only with people with actual dysphagia, but people with dentures as well. So even if they don't have a true dysphagia, if they have dentures, it's actually very difficult because their biting power decreases with dentures. So just even biting into, chunked cantaloupe or fruit or something like that. So again, kind of bringing in those alternate choices, crushed pineapple, sherbet, anything that can still be a fruit, but just modified a little bit. So planning ahead is pretty important.
I was just laughing, Ashley, because I'm thinking of my speech therapist's face years and years ago when she walked in and saw everyone eating seeded watermelon.
Yeah.
She had a panic attack. It was just, it's a very hard thing to eat and it requires a lot of tongue control to get those seeds out, manage that liquid and that solid at the same time.
Mhm.
So as clinicians, we do have a responsibility to be the educators in our facility, right? So once we've identified that there is a concern, it's up to us to try to find a way to fix that concern. So going to your administrator, working with your interdisciplinary team, trying to get someone from your rehab department onto that planning committee, and then thinking about how we can get education to our family members. So do we have a family meeting where the involved families come into the facility once a month or once a quarter to meet with us? Can we bring our speech therapist or our dietitian in to meet with them ahead of summer so that we can help them with those same strategies before they take their loved ones out of our facility into their family gatherings? It's not just about what happens in our facility, but it's making sure that we're keeping our patients safe no matter where they are. And so providing that education to them before those events instead of after those events. No one wants to provide education after someone had a choking episode. We want to get it done before if we can. And so thinking about ways that we can reach our family members, maybe having a packet for them before they sign out for an LOA, just so they have that information available to them and make sure that someone goes over them.
Mhm. Well, first off, I'm getting hungry thinking about all of this because all of this food sounds really good to me. But then also, even from like a PTOT perspective, I'm thinking about picnics and I'm picturing this, uneven grass. And so I just can't help but mention that, as we're talking about, navigating a park or navigating even some of the courtyards within our care facilities. Yes, let's absolutely make sure that we are providing foods that are easily consumed and enjoyed by everyone who's there at the event, but also just watch out for the divots and the uneven ground, because certainly we've got to watch out for that as well. We want everyone to have a really good time and not potentially have an incident that occurs that was, unintended for sure. But then, hearing us talk about, the family education and talking about handouts and resources, I agree with that 100%. Anytime that we can give something out, a paper handout for someone to take away and someone to be able to refer to and reference and have a better understanding of what it is they need to remember and to follow up on is certainly helpful. Family education is a true part of therapy interventions and what clinicians do, all day, every day. But it's really important to share our strategies, share our ideas to make sure that everyone understands. Because, making this type of event, whether it is the patient, whether it's the clinicians, whether those interdisciplinary folks participating in activities in our care facilities, it's going to make a huge difference in making these summer picnic celebrations and gatherings just a great time for everyone. So I encourage everyone to follow up and utilize the strategies and the ideas that we talked about today. Well, I would like to thank everyone for joining us and listening in to hear our discussion on managing the picnic season with dysphagia. And we look forward to having you tune in again at our next episode of Coffee Talk with Encore.